It's your Friday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Happy to be back for another day. Hope you all are having a great day out there. Great show coming up. Dana Wessel, 93X morning show. A friend of mine will join me here in a little bit. We're talking 90s sports movies, mostly kind of a kid's bent that you should be showing to the kids in your life these days. No better expert that I know, at least, on the subject than Dana. I've been watching a lot of these movies that we're talking about recently, too, with my own kids, so I have some basis of research on my own end as well. But Dana and I will go through a list. We'll have some fun, so stick around for that in a little bit. Big Twins series this weekend. Disappointing homestand so far, to say the least. 1-5, swept by Atlanta. Had an off day Thursday to regroup. Pablo Lopez pitches tonight. Big one for him. I'll explain why at the end of the show. First, though, what did I miss? I didn't miss it. I don't know if you did, though. I don't know if you stayed up for the conclusion of Gophers, North Carolina. Minnesota loses 19-17. Game delayed, start time by an hour because of weather. By the time a kickoff rolled around, it was actually pretty nice. There was like a little bit of a mist that fell during some of the game, but got it in good shape. It turned out to be a really nice night for football. Not a really nice night for the Gophers, though. A game that ended right around 11:30, 11:20, somewhere in there. They lose 19-17, had plenty of chances, and I guess if I was trying to think of how to sum up the game when I was driving home. I was there with a bunch of friends. We were hanging out, watching the game. Good seats, had a good view of everything going on, including the beautiful sunset as things cleared up a little bit on Thursday night. I'm trying to sum up what the game was, and so I kind of jotted this down. Basically, there were not a lot of fireworks in the game, not figurative fireworks. It was kind of not a dull game, but not a lot of like moments. There's a few which I'll get to, but largely it was defenses outplaying the offenses, special teams playing a big role. It was close always. I don't think any team nobody was up by more than a score at any point, so it wasn't boring in a sense of someone jumping out to a huge lead and just running away, but it was not like this exciting end-to-end action. It was more of a defensive battle and more of offenses struggling, so not a lot of figurative fireworks. When there were literal fireworks on Thursday night, they came at the wrong moments. They shot off fireworks at the end when the Gophers missed a would-be game-winning 47-yard field goal as time expired. It sailed wide right. Maybe they didn't get the memo, but that was not a good field goal. That was a missed field goal. Referees signal, but there go the fireworks. Everyone's like, why are they shooting off fireworks? The Gophers just lost this game. But the fireworks were there nonetheless. They went off a little prematurely earlier in the game, too, when the Gophers got close to scoring a touchdown but didn't get in. They did get in a couple plays later, so it's not like that was the end of the world. But fireworks, not in the figurative sense and at the wrong time in the literal sense. The biggest thing I wanted to see in this game, though, was quarterback Max Brosmer. Is he and can he be the guy to give them a more dynamic offense? And I think at this point, the most generous thing we can say is the jury is still out because they didn't have a great offensive effort. They went, I think, 3 and out 5 different times. They only scored 17 points ultimately. One of those was on an extremely short field after a play I'll get to in a minute. Brosmer got more comfortable as the game went on. I think his final numbers turned out pretty good, like 13 of 21, a little over 160 yards passing. Those are good, solid numbers. By the way, Ethan Kalikmanis, last year's starting quarterback for the Gophers, had a good debut for Rutgers, 3 touchdown passes and a blowout win, albeit against lesser competition than North Carolina. They beat Howard yesterday. Not a bad team. They've been good in their own conference, but not a power 4, power 5, whatever you want to define it as now these days. Not one of the powerhouse conferences, but good debut for Manis. Brosmer, I thought, did get better as the game went on, got more comfortable. He had no time to throw early on. The offensive line really struggling in pass protection. I thought he got better, made some good decisions, had a little bit of inaccuracy, especially early. Wondered if that was maybe some jitters, some nerves. Couple throws he probably wished he had back, but overall, he was okay. If you wanted more than that, if you wanted a definitive answer on is this their quarterback of 2024 who can get them to the promised land, who can take them higher, I don't know if we know that for sure yet. And if you don't know that for sure yet, maybe that's a little bit disappointing. But it also is just indicative. It's the first game of the season. You just don't know exactly. These things can go either way still at this point. But I was nervous about what I saw from him early, and I did think it got better. He did bring them on a nice drive at the end of the game that could have won the game. 2-minute drill, had a couple nice passes, including a 20-yarder that got them into North Carolina territory. But alas, that field goal misses at the end, and they lose 19-17. The defense was the story for most of the game. They completely changed momentum in the first half. Gophers were down 7-0. North Carolina had the ball right around midfield after a short punt. Looked like North Carolina could really take control of the game, but Justin Wally, interception fairly deep in in his own territory, runs it back 70 yards all the way to the North Carolina 6. That set up the Gophers' first touchdown. 7-7 all of a sudden. Defense was stout pretty much all night, except got a little bit pushed around in the third quarter. I thought momentum really changed in that third quarter. North Carolina had the ball to start the third quarter, drove for like 8.5 minutes, only got a field goal, but really had the time of possession really locked up in that third quarter. I think the Gophers only had the ball for like a minute of the third quarter. Momentum changed there, even though the defense held North Carolina to 4 field goals on those drives in the second half. A lot of bending, not a lot of breaking, but enough that North Carolina could win the game with 4 field goals. I think the defense was a bright spot. There was about 250 yards given up. That's about how many the Gophers had, too. It was very even at the end of the night in yards, in time of possession, in points. These were 2 fairly evenly matched teams. I guess you can take that either way. It's like, yeah, this is a Power 5 school that they're playing, Power 4 now, I guess, however you want to call it, like I said. But this is my final point. This is a game that if the Gophers are going to be a bowl team this season, again, that shouldn't be the end-all, be-all goal for a team. You should aspire to more than just participating in one of these 90,000 bowl games. But if that's a baseline expectation, winning this game was important, right? You've got a home game. Again, it's a team that's good, a team that you lost to pretty handily last year in North Carolina when North Carolina had Drake May, future number 3 overall pick in the draft. But it's still a game that you would like to think you can win, that they had every chance to win, and that they couldn't get it done. Doesn't say the season is over, but does make it more difficult when you look at their schedule. Does make it more difficult to see them at the end of the year getting to at least 6-6, getting to legitimate bowl eligibility. So we'll see at the end of the year if we're looking back on one game, a few mistakes, a missed kick as the thing that kept them from going to a bowl game or a better bowl game, things like that. But it feels important. It feels like this was a game that they could have, should have won, and that they just couldn't get it done.
It is a thrill to be joined today by my friend Dana Wessel to talk about sports movies and like a specific Dana like subgenre. I don't even know what we call the kind of movies we're going to talk about today. How would you describe a movie like The Sandlot, things like that?
I refer to them because you're right. It's a very specific subgenre, and it happened mostly in the 90s. And I call them 90s ragtag underdog sports movies.
It's a very specific genre, but it's true.
It
right?
is, but it was a genre that was very popular and produced some great movies that we're going to talk about here today.
We are. So we're gonna do. I think we can get to 5 pretty easily. What are five 90s ragtag sports movies from the 90s that those of us who are, I'm a little older than you and I've got 3 kids, that we should be showing to our kids that we should be showing to our kids now? What are those movies?
Well, I think for first and foremost, obviously we're from Minnesota, so Mighty Ducks obviously comes to mind immediately. They still hold up, as you can see. I have some Mighty Ducks jerseys behind me. I'm wearing a Mighty Ducks jersey.
Yes.
And also, before we get too deep into this, how long have you been doing this podcast? It's been like 2 or 3 years, right?
3.5 years.
And you've had tons of guests, and I guarantee you, I am the only one of those guests that owns Mighty Ducks 2 on Laserdisc.
Oh my gosh, Mighty
a sealed
Ducks
copy, by the way. A sealed copy.
I gotta start. I'm gonna start doing like a lot more like giveaways and promotions. I've done a few of them, but like I'm not asking you for your copy, but that would be an amazing, very like specific giveaway to give someone a Laserdisc copy. Do you own a Laserdisc player?
Oh God, no! I've never even seen a Laserdisc player in real life, but I saw it online and I knew I needed to own it. So
we used to have a Laserdisc player in my high school chemistry classroom, which would have been like 1993. So that's probably right around the right time.
It was, yeah. And technology that lasted like about a year and a half.
Because Ducks came out in like 92, right? So that'd have been about like the sliver of time when you might have wanted a Laserdisc for anything other than irony. We had Mighty Ducks, which is a great place to start because we just watched this as a family like maybe a month ago, and then spoiler alert, the kids really liked it. I told them, and then we're like looking for a whole like another set of movies to watch the other night. We'd like to do a family movie night, usually like on a Friday or Saturday. And we're like looking through all these things. I'm showing them previews, maybe some movies that we're going to get to in a little bit. And they're like, no, I don't want to watch that one. It doesn't look good. And like sometimes they just want to watch the same thing they've already seen, because like kids are 10, 7, and 4. They're just like, they know what they like. They're like, I want to watch that again. But then like we get to the end of this whole thing and I'm like, well, there is, a sequel to Mighty Ducks. There's Mighty Ducks 2. And my 10-year-old Annabelle's like, why didn't you just tell us that in the first place? So we put that on. We actually put it on the projector that we have, which was kind of fun. We put it on the projector, and
you got my phone number, by the way. You could have invited me over.
next time we do that, I'll call Uncle Dana, get you over here. But what is it about Mighty Ducks aside from the Minnesota angle that has held on such an appeal to you for so long?
Well, I think it came out in the perfect time. Like you said, I'm a little bit younger than you. I grew up in the 90s. I was right in the perfect wheelhouse for when I call it the trilogy, all three of them, the trilogy.
All three. Okay, we're gonna get to that in a minute. Okay.
It was just the perfect timing. They came out. I had the VHS copies. I'd watch them all day, and when I was bored in the summer, I'm not joking, Mike, when I say I've probably seen Mighty Ducks 2 over 150 times in my life, and that might be a safe estimate even.
Wow. So this is a sequel. Mighty Ducks 2. You've seen that often. That's
Mighty Ducks 2. Mighty Ducks 2 is my favorite. Don't get me wrong. I celebrate the entire trilogy.
Of course you do.
But D2 is probably my favorite. And they're just they're fun. They're obviously cheesy. If you see them now for the first time as an adult, you'll probably roll your eyes. But if you can see them through the lens of a kid, like I was when I was young, they hold up really well. The humor's fun. Coach Bombay's cool. Joshua Jackson and Charlie Conway is just an awesome guy, and I just really enjoy them. They just kind of always bring me. Anytime I watch them, I still kind of feel like I'm 10 years old again watching them.
And you can tell, like when you watch it, you can tell exactly when it was made because the 90s style of this kind of movie, which you hit on kind of right at the beginning, is kind of this like, it's like, the scenes are pretty quick. They're just setting up all these gags. It's going to be cheesy. Mm-hmm. It's going to have this dialogue. You're going to have these like this cutaway to like random people who are making like faces like, oh, wasn't that cute? Stuff like that. It's like a very specific 90s vibe to it.
It definitely does. And you can feel it too. And especially even just seeing, like in the first one, they have a cameo from some of the North Stars and stuff.
Right. Yeah, that was great. Right.
Shows like that slice of life that you forget about, and they're bombing around the Mall of America on rollerblades, and downtown in City Center back in the day.
City Center used to be the center of the city.
Yeah. That stuff's fun to see, and I've always just thought that there's good fun flicks, and the underdog aspect, of course, is just even as a kid, like, I had a feeling they were going to beat Iceland in the championship game. You know?
Spoiler alert! Jeez, at the junior Goodwill games.
25 years old.
The junior Goodwill games. Which is
the very prestigious junior Goodwill games. Yeah. I feel like they don't get enough attention. Everybody focuses on the Olympics, especially this year, but the junior Goodwill games is where it's at.
Now, I feel like I probably wounded you a little bit then the other day when I was like, we'd watched the first one like a few weeks ago. And while that one is not like grounded in realism, there's some the elements of it seemed more plausible, right? It's like a youth hockey team, ragtag bunch of kids. They redraw the district lines, all this stuff. It's the underdog story. The second one is like some sort of
like there's a lake that they redraw the boundary that draws a kid from Edina into a team from Minneapolis.
We don't understand. We're not going to worry about that. Yeah. But the basic premise is at least somewhat plausible, and they get sponsored by this, sponsored by the duck company and stuff like that. And there you go. But the second one is like a Team USA thing, like all of a sudden, and then they like get this kid, Keenan Thompson, by the way. They get Keenan Thompson just kind of like out of nowhere in the middle of the tournament, add him to the Team USA roster. I don't see that happening these days. He's shooting the knuckle puck, all this stuff. Like the realism in the second one set me back a little bit. Your thoughts on that?
It does get a little off the rails too. I completely agree, but I think that also adds to the fun. And also there's a scene in the beginning, if you remember this, where Coach Bombay finds out that they're going to get the Ducks back together, and they're going to be Team USA. So he has Charlie go round up the Ducks. And if you calculate the mileage, which I have once before, they they rollerblade from Minneapolis to St. Paul to the Mall of America to Edina to Lake of the Isles. Those kids rollerbladed over 40 miles that day in order to round up all of the gang.
It sounds like a bunch of blade buds for me.
Yeah, they lean into the silliness for sure in the second one, but I still get a kick out of it.
I do too. I mean, we liked it. Our kids liked it. And so is the third one worth it? You say the trilogy. Is it worth it? Should we do that one too?
A lot of Ducks fans, they poo-poo the third one. I actually really enjoy it. It's good. Again, it's shot here in Minnesota. It's them as a JV team. They got scholarships, but the big bad varsity team.
So they went from Team USA to a JV team. Is that my understanding?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm following the plot line here. Got it.
And you're right. It's so funny, too, that, so this team that sucked at the beginning of Mighty Ducks 1 gets picked to represent the entire country in the Goodwill games.
And then they get busted down to JV. Okay.
And then they get busted down to JV.
Okay.
And they ended up in the final game, they ended up playing the varsity team in a scrimmage, so to speak. And it's better than the people let on. It's definitely the forgotten Mighty Ducks movie, but I still think it holds up in my opinion.
Are all the main people still in it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, that's important.
Yeah, they do lose a couple players along the way, some of the less important ones. But the main guys, Joshua Jackson, the characters, I'll say them, Charlie Conway, Fulton Reed, Adam Banks, Greg Goldberg, Julia the Cat Gaffney, Guy Germain, Connie Moreau, all of them are all still in it.
Because sometimes when they just want to keep the franchise going, just to kind of feed off of the name and make some money, it's like a whole new cast of characters. And you watch it and you're like, well, it's not even, you can't even really call it that if it's not that. But you're saying it's mostly the same people. So probably would, our kids would probably like it, is what you're saying. If they like the first two, they probably like the last one.
It's a little bit, they are getting older at this point. You look at them like, oh God, they're not kids anymore.
Right.
And Emilio Estevez is barely in the third one. He basically makes a glorified cameo.
Okay. How come?
Yeah. I think he was probably sick during the Mighty Ducks.
He's probably like, I'm good. I'm good. So does he not coach? Does he not coach the team anymore?
No, he's more of like a mentor, and he comes back and helps Charlie out through sometimes. They have a different coach, Coach Orion, in this one.
Oh,
and I'm guessing Amelia at that point was like, if I keep doing these, I might run into a dude in Minneapolis that owns a Laserdisc copy of Mighty Ducks 2, and I don't ever want that to happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a fair point. Okay, so we got through the Ducks. The one that kind of sparked all of this, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the Sandlot, which, by the way, I discovered today in kind of prepping for this segment. There's a Sandlot 2 and a Sandlot 3, which is
do not watch them.
I don't know. I'm skeptical because it was like 12 years later that the second one came out. It's not, like I said, this is kind of like an all new cast of characters thing. But the original I hadn't seen until I was an adult, and I was like,
oh really?
This is actually pretty good. Yeah, it wasn't. I don't know how it escaped my lore. Maybe I was just like a little bit too old for it because again, like, you know, I'm born in 76. I graduate from high school in 94. So it's like I'm in high school by the time a lot of these are coming out. But I definitely saw the Mighty Ducks 1 and 2 in the theaters. But I missed The Sandlot, even though I was a baseball player. But I watched it. Like I interviewed like a couple of the guys from the movie like 10 years ago when it was like the 20-year anniversary.
Yeah. I did the same thing at the radio station I was at the time.
Right. And now we should tell everybody, of course, you're at 93X now. It's very successful. Ham in your own right?
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Ham's morning show and Hamilton Porter, the catcher from Sandlot.
Yeah, so I hadn't seen it, and then finally it was like, okay, we should show the kids this movie. And I was like, I don't know if they're really going to like it. And like 5 minutes in, like the two youngest are like, I don't like this. Turn on something else. But then it like picks up a little bit, and all of a sudden by the end they're like, 2 thumbs up, we love this. And then, you know, we watched it again. Like it was like an outdoor movie like a month ago. So that one, I feel like that one is definitely like eminently shareable with the next generation.
Oh, I completely agree. You know, we were talking at the beginning of this about calling this genre, you know, ragtag underdog sports movies, which is a genre I love, and I don't say that as a bad thing, but I think Sandlot's like a legit just good movie. You know, it's pigeonholing it as, you know, an underdog 90s sports movie is almost kind of, you know, insulting to it, you know. But again, I love those types of movies, but it's a legit good movie. Like anytime I watch The Sandlot to this day, it makes me nostalgic for an era in which I obviously did not grow up in, you know, like it's just, there's something so pure about it. And it's not just like a movie about baseball. It's a movie about friendship. Right. And, you know, the type of friendships that you remember having as a kid, the type of friendships you only have when you're that age, you know, like that one magical summer that they talk about. And there's just something so pure and fun about it that I think for any kid, you know, in any generation, this movie will always stand the test of time, in my opinion.
And then, of course, you have the dog, which made it for, you know, for our younger kids. They're like they I think they would watch the last like 20 or 30 minutes over and over again if they could.
Just the dog, Benny getting chased by the dog down like the parade,
and them trying to get the ball back for, you know, 6 different times using all these contraptions, stuff like that. I think they would watch that like over and over again.
You got it. Pull it up. And then too, the ending is cool too for sports fans, you know, like it's super cheesy that the main character ends up being the announcer of the Dodgers while his best friend, they say the Jets lost a step or two, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some fireworks here tonight. Analytics these days, by the way, would say don't try to steal home in that situation. I would think, but I think the sabermetric folks probably hate that scene because I don't know who was up to bat. Yeah, I don't know who's up to bat for the Dodgers, but I bet they probably would have more banked on you know, somebody knocking in a single to get Benny the Jet home rather than him stealing home.
Seems like a low percentage play, probably not the best. The data working against the end of The Sandlot, but you know what? I don't think the data was really high on, you know, those kids getting, you know, that you know, especially the main character getting that much better over the course of the summer. He couldn't even catch a ball at the beginning of the summer, and then all of a sudden he's the one that hits the home run that gets himself in trouble.
Exactly. He able to park a Babe Ruth baseball over the fence. Dennis Leary was great in that, by the way.
Yes.
As a stepdad.
Yes, but with all these movies, though, you have to be able to kind of suspend your disbelief and just kind of like roll with it, right? If you're looking for too much realism, and there was plenty of realism in that movie, but if you're looking for too much of it, you're going in the wrong place, which is part of what makes it fun. You don't need these to be 100% accurate, but you know, then again, like what fun movie is 100% accurate? Like you love all the Fast and Furious movies, like those probably elements of storytelling that maybe don't always happen in real life too.
when I go into those movies, like 90s sports movies or movies like Fast and Furious, I'm not looking for Citizen Kane. I'm not looking for,
No.
I'm looking to be entertained and have some fun and just turn the brain off. And that's why I think some of these 90s sports movies that we're talking about are so perfect for that. So
what else do you put? So you say, first of all, don't watch the next two Sandlot movies as opposed to the Ducks movies.
No.
Have you seen them?
I saw parts of them there. They were like direct to VHS or DVD type things.
Right.
They never
Laserdisc. They were direct to Laserdisc.
They never appeared in the theaters. Just kind of one of those like let's cash in on the name type of things. Where the Mighty Ducks had good sequels, but the Sandlot sequels were just kind of lame.
Yeah, there was a little bit probably too far removed from the original for it to be good. But I think we're probably going to have to try the second one just because they love the first one so much. So we'll see about that.
The kids might love it for sure.
I might not like it. Yeah, they might. Yeah, because they like all the Honey I Shrunk the Kids sequels and stuff like that. Even like the ones that have nothing to do with. I mean, different genre. Ragtag underdog story, but not sports. What else do you put in? What else do you put in this genre then?
I would definitely put a Little Big League in there. I know that's another one. Like, how are we so crazy random in Minnesota that we had the Mighty Ducks franchise and we also had Little Big League, which was filmed, primarily in the Metrodome with the Twins. That's the one where a kid becomes the manager of the Twins because his grandpa dies and he becomes the owner and then appoints himself as manager.
Extremely plausible as well.
Yeah, exactly. And, again, it's ragtag. The Twins are terrible, but they go on a hot stretch and they make it to, I think it was like game 162 against Griffey and the Mariners and stuff. But it's fun to watch, too, just because, again, it's adults and a kid, though. So it's different in that regard, but it's still very fun. And the one thing, I know you'll agree with me on this, I don't know how recently you've seen it, but when I saw it as a kid, they showed the Twins clubhouse, and it's just this massive, sprawling thing inside the Metrodome. And I'll never forget, in 2006, I was 21, I was a college intern at KFAN, and I got my first opportunity to go get audio at a Twins game. And I remember walking into the clubhouse and seeing how small it was. And I was like, Little Big League lied to me. There's nowhere near the massive, big, wide open room it was in that movie.
No, that's true. And Target Field is much bigger now. The Metrodome was not a big space. It just was not.
But it is fun to see. I'm glad that there's a movie out there that kind of memorialized the Metrodome because, as much as the place sucked, I also loved it because it was a dump, but it was our dump, and I loved it so much. So I'm glad that there's a movie version where people can, kind of always remember the Metrodome the way it should be.
So that one's rewatchable. That one's good to show to the kids, you think?
Yeah, I think they would get a kick out of that one for sure.
Okay.
Another one. What's that?
What else?
Oh, I was going to say one I think the kids would love, and I think especially because you mentioned the Beast from Sandlot, I really think they would like Air Bud, the original Air Bud where he's playing basketball.
Not Air Bud 2 Golden Receiver? Is that Air Bud 2?
Golden Receiver or seventh inning fetch when he plays baseball. I think there's a soccer one in there too.
They had all the jokes ready. Yeah.
Yeah. The original one is it is a good movie. It was actually well reviewed at the time. I mean, it's obviously there's a dog playing basketball.
Immediately you're just like, okay, all right, dog playing basketball. As long as we can agree that that's something that we're going to go along with, then you can enjoy the movie.
There's that great quote from the coach where the coach for the good guys, and also another connection to Minnesota. The team name is the Timberwolves in this team. Even though I think the movie was filmed in Oregon. Yeah,
okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
So the coach of the good guys, the Timberwolves, the opposing coach, he's all flustered because the dog is making steals and hitting free throws and stuff. And the coach of the good guys kind of shrugs his shoulder. He goes, "No rule in the rule book that says dogs can't play basketball."
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm not sure I've seen Air Bud or any of the Air Bud franchise. So that might be a good one because our kids all love dogs. They seem to be enjoying this genre. So maybe that's and that's an entirely different subgenre too of like animals in
playing sports.
Animals in ragtag 90s movies about sports.
I promise I won't recommend MVP, Most Valuable Primate, where the monkey plays hockey. That's what I.
That's where we draw the line.
Yeah, that's where
no.
It's worth to watch if you want a laugh at how bad it is, but I would suggest just passing over that one. Don't even let your kids know that one exists.
Is Rookie of the Year part of this genre, or is that different?
Absolutely. I had jotted that one down too. I think that one's a very fun one. Again, it's kind of like Little Big League, where a kid is thrust into the major league spotlight, this time as a player. So the hook on that one is Henry Roland Gardner is a horrible Little League player, and he slips on a ball coming off the mound and just goes ass over apple cart and lands on his arm. And the way they had it in a cast like this, so he had to stay like that, and they explain it as the tendons fused too tightly, so all of a sudden the kid can throw like 110 miles an hour.
As one does, the tendons. Yeah. They do that sometimes. I've seen a lot of people.
I had some buddies who broke their arms back in the day, and they didn't get that lucky.
No.
So then he ends up playing for the Cubs, and he's a fish out of the water type of thing. Here's a young kid on a team with a veteran Gary Busey, who's the old kind of grizzled pitcher on the staff, the Rocket Stedman, and that one holds up too. It's just goofy fun, because in that sound it makes, because he makes like this. I can't describe it; you just have to hear it. But like when he winds his arm back and throws the pitch, it makes like this whooshing sound,
Right.
That's just over the top and ridiculous, and that one's fun too, and features the kid who ended up being in American Pie one day. So.
Oh, I definitely saw that one in the theater too. I remember seeing that one in the theater. Rookie of the Year, yeah, I remember seeing that one in the theater. I remember he got on base one time, right? Like he had to bat. This is back before the universal DH.
Yeah, because
he was like taunting the pitcher, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was taunting the pitcher. That's right. Pitcher's got a big butt. Right. And then he ends up, I don't know what happens, but I'm sure hilarity and hijinks.
I think he ended up somehow making it all the way around home, all the way to home.
Right.
And there's also that great scene where he travels for the first time on the road, and he orders a bunch of adult movies, and he comes back, and his mom gets the bill, and she goes, so says something like, "So how was Night Nurses 2?"
Oh my gosh, that's tremendous. That is just tremendous. Oh man. Okay, what else? What else do we got on this genre?
One I think that you would like to, as well as the kids, is Little Giants. Are you familiar with Little Giants?
I've not seen it, but I was going to ask you because I was like parsing through the list and wondered if that was one that you might mention.
That one's very good, yeah. I mean, it's got Rick Moranis as the coach of the underdogs, the Giants, and then Ed O'Neill, who's the coach of the big bad Cowboys. And they're brothers, and who always had a feud because Ed O'Neill was like the talented brother who was a star quarterback, and Rick Moranis was the brother who's just kind of the nerd. And so he leads the team of underdogs against this team. It's got Devin Sawa, if you know that name, who's fantastic as the quarterback. And, again, just – John Madden and Emmitt Smith and a bunch of NFL players make cameos. Bruce Smith as well. Yeah, it's that one is one I think that you would appreciate the humor between the brothers Ed O'Neill and Rick Moranis, and your kids would like the goofy young dorky kids who. I don't want to give you a spoiler. The Giants win in the end.
Really? Oh, unlike most of these movies where...
Yeah.
maybe one of these movies they should lose just so we get a dose of realism, right? Like, you almost had it, but you know what? That'd be a true Viking. Maybe the Vikings can make a movie like that. They almost had it.
I was going to say Little Big League, actually, the guy at the end of the game, against the Mariners hits, a long fly ball and you think it's going to be gone, and Griffey ends up robbing it at the wall. So that is one where they don't win in the end. But yeah, for the most part, like you said, it's they have a formula.
They do. There's a formula. It's tried and true. That's why this is a genre. Genres have formulas, things like that. So. Is there a soccer one that we should be talking about? I mean, I feel that the hockey is covered, baseball is definitely covered, Little Giants. I guess Air Bud counts as a basketball movie, even though it's a dog.
There is a soccer one that was made by Disney. It was called The Big Green. The kid who plays Hamilton Porter.
Yes.
I'm blanking.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on his name right now. Patrick Reina.
Yeah, Patrick
Reina. He plays the goalie on the team, and again. ragtag group of underdogs. And as you know me, we've been friends for over a decade now.
Yes.
I love soccer.
Yes.
And even when I watched Green, The Big Green as a kid, I was like, kind of, oh, this movie's kind of stupid.
It's just like, maybe not, huh? Maybe not.
No, it's honestly, and it stinks too, because you know how much I love soccer. But I remember even watching as a kid, and I tried to get into it. I remember having a VHS, and I was like, this movie's just not very good.
Okay. So
I think that's when Disney was kind of running out of steam after movies like Mighty Ducks, and I think they were kind of forcing that one in. They're like, well, this genre is working, so let's crank out. Like, what sport haven't we done yet? Let's throw soccer into the mix. And yeah, it wasn't very good.
Well, there was wasn't there Kicking and Screaming with Will Ferrell, and then the Ladybugs with Rodney Dangerfield.
Ladybugs with Rodney Dangerfield. Yeah, that was kind of fun. That's a
little earlier, probably.
Yeah, that's one where he dressed up like his nephew or grandson or something as a girl to play on the soccer team.
As maybe a movie that doesn't get made today.
No. Although they also made a soccer movie too, where they did it the other way around, where Amanda Bynes, she's the man with Channing Tatum. The women's soccer team that she played on in college, the women's soccer team got cut because of financial reasons. So she dressed up as a boy and played on the boys' team. And then there was a big reveal at the end. They're like, oh wow, Sebastian was Amanda Bynes all along.
The real friends.
God, I know way too much about this stuff. I'm embarrassed.
Friends we made along the way. Oh man. Well, okay, so if we had to carve out a top five, maybe we can end here. What are the five best?
I'd say Mighty Ducks for sure, Sandlot for sure, Little Big League, Little Giants, and I would throw Air Bud in there too. I'd say those would be the top five. So Ducks, Sandlot, Little Big League, Air Bud, and Little Giants.
We didn't even talk about Karate Kid. We didn't talk about Karate Kid, and I don't know if that quite fits into the genre or not.
I thought it was more of an 80s. And
it is more of an 80s movie. It's an 80s movie.
I love Karate Kid. I'm all in on Cobra Kai as well. I watch every season of that. But yeah, I think that's more of an 80s movie than I don't necessarily kind of lump that in with it's same premise, new kid in town, underdog, scrawny, ends up winning the karate championship, learns life lessons along the way.
Dana, spoiler alert, he wins. Just kidding.
So yeah, I wouldn't lump that in there, but
That's
Karate Kid, an excellent film. I imagine kids these days would still get a kick out of that one as well.
Yeah, I think we should watch that. We showed them the preview. They're like, nah. Well, part of the reason is my wife and I joke our son Edison, who's 4, is a dead ringer for the villain, not the coach, but the rival to the
Johnny Lawrence.
Yeah, he's a dead ringer for him as a kid. He could be that could be his Halloween costume as Karate Kid villain as a child, because he looks very much like him.
And if people, I think you probably haven't seen it. You have kids and have responsibilities in life, which I don't. So you haven't watched Cobra Kai, but they actually kind of flip it, and they kind of point out that actually Ralph Macchio might have been the villain. He kind of came in, stole the guy's girlfriend, kind of beat him up a couple times, out of nowhere. So it's kind of fun like that. Yeah. William Zabka, who plays Johnny Lawrence, is fantastic in Cobra Kai.
Okay.
I want you to please tell me you will dress him up as Halloween as Johnny Lawrence.
We can try. I mean, there's got to be. I mean, maybe now, at least now that there's a Cobra Kai, maybe there's a Cobra Kai kids costume. We could dress him up like that.
Yeah, there's a black and yellow gi. They're called gis. That's all the clothes they wear.
So, also things that I don't know. You know a lot. I mean, if I was going to do a segment like this, it had to be with you. This was Dana. This was perfect. This is amazing. I've got some recommendations now to show to the kids, some other movies that we can watch, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, it was funny too. I got to tell you. So, I work at 93 Acts, and anytime I do things like this, I just run it by the boss. Hey, is this cool? And not that, you run a controversial podcast or, start screaming at 93 Acts for enemies or anything like that.
Right.
But I still like to run it by him. And he goes, yeah, my buddy Michael Rand, I'm sure you read his stuff. He does a daily sports podcast. Cool if I jump on. He goes, yeah, absolutely. He goes, what are you guys going to talk about? The Viking season's about to start, Twins pennant race. I'm like, no, he's been showing his children 90s sports movies, so he decided to call on the biggest man-child he knows to provide an expert opinion on them.
It's perfect.
the role I was born to play, baby.
It was don't mean to typecast you, but it was the role you were born to play.
It was funny too because I text you. I'm like, well, "What movies do you want to talk about?" I should do some research. I'm like, my whole life has been researched.
Your whole life, you've been waiting for this moment. You've been waiting for this moment. Well, it's to everyone's benefit. And yours too. I mean, these are all good movies. These are fun movies. There's nothing to say you shouldn't be watching these movies now either. Dana Wessel, appreciate it. Let's hang out soon.
Yep, absolutely.
Tons of fun with Dana Wessel, wasn't that? And I got to try. I know he said don't do it, but I think I need to show my kids The Sandlot too because they liked The Sandlot so much. I know it came out like 12 years later. I know it was straight to video, straight to laser disc. But I think they would like it. I think we got to give it a try. I think maybe I'll try the Mighty Ducks 3 with them too because they all liked the second one. They all really liked the first one. Maybe Rookie of the Year is another one that we're going to try next too. So I'll give those a whirl. Maybe you should give them a try too if you've got kids, if you just want to rewatch them, if you got grandkids, whatever your age is right now, if you got brothers and sisters. Let's rewatch these movies, see what we think, because I think there's some fun to be had with educating the next generation on this genre of movie. Let's finish quickly with the cooler. Twins and Blue Jays this weekend. Like I said at the jump, this feels important, right? 1 of 162 tonight, but a team that's been sliding 8 losses in 10 games, just got swept, 5 losses in 6 games on the homestand. Pablo Lopez, your ace, against one of Toronto's best pitchers, Kevin Gausman. This is one where it's kind of their strength against your strength. Feels like it could be a close, low-scoring game, kind of a 3-2 kind of game. Those kind of games have not really gone the Twins' way lately. The bullpen has been a factor, has been an issue. They need to get that sorted out in this game, in this series. Got to win this series against the Blue Jays. Got to feel better about yourself at the end of this homestand than you do right now. So you got to win, and you've got to win your Pablo Lopez start. So this one feels particularly important. If they can win this one, kind of stop the bleeding, win at least one of the 2 over the weekend, then I think you could start to feel like you're bringing better momentum on the road. And then, of course, you got Tampa Bay, but right after that, you got to play the Royals in Kansas City. Royals have been hot. They have passed the Twins in the standings. So a lot at stake this weekend, a lot at stake tonight in particular for the Twins. Feels like we'll know a little bit more about where this is all headed by the end of this weekend, and by the end of this weekend, we'll also be into September. So let's see what happens. We'll give them a chance. We'll give them a chance to kind of prove that this is just another streak and not the way this season is going to turn, and if they can get it done against Toronto with Pablo Lopez on the hill. That will do it for me today. Long weekend. I don't expect to be back until Tuesday, but enjoy the long weekend. Enjoy the rest of summer. School starts for our kids on Tuesday. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for it, but I'm also not ready to let go of summer. So let's enjoy the weekend while we still can. That'll do it for me. Like I said, back at it next week. We'll see you then.